Okay. Well, welcome back. And it is good to see you.
It's good to see you too.
You look absolutely fabulous. Whatever you're doing, 2025 at least is treating you well so far. Not the rest of the world, but you seem to be having a good go of it right now. So
Yes, I am.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. I know we shouldn't be chuckling because this is we recorded our last one before all the fires in Southern California, and now this is. I'd like to think the worst of that is, well, it's not. I mean, it's gonna continue the after effect for quite a while. Um, anyway, we'll see how it all plays out. I mean, I'm a little bit up in the air on all of that right now, but I know that the UCLA Film and Television Archive is okay, where the Film Noir Foundation has its films. But a lot of friends and family are really affected by this. So
Yeah, I checked in on quite a few people this week and I was happy all my friends are okay. So that was a comfort anyway.
yeah, I mean I mean we don't need to get too far into this because I'm sure that the people who aren't affected by it have heard enough. The people who are affected by it, what are we going to add to all of that? It's just that you know I was I kind of checked in on social media against my better judgment the other night when Noir Alley was on just to see what the temperature was, and it was nice to have people who were affected say that it was nice to have a distraction. After all, the film fans, um, they're still film fans at the end of the day, so they're we'll see. The way I'm looking at it, the festival that's coming up in a couple of weeks in Oakland is a wonderful distraction, and I've taken to calling it a sanctuary because you can just get away from the hellscape that is contemporary America. You can get away from it for 10 days at the NOIR City Film Festival. So imagine the irony of movies about people behaving at their worst somehow being comforting at this time. But
Yeah. Well,
that's how
I
it
don't know.
goes.
It's always enjoyable to see a bad girl, and it's all bad girls this time. Except for
Exactly.
Marcia, of course.
Exactly. Yeah, Marsha's the good girl in this. Yeah. There are a couple. I mean, it's there are a lot of bad girls in the festival, but seriously, the idea wasn't to just be all femme fatales. I mean, it's funny how people assume that when you talk about women in film noir,
Hmm.
they immediately leap to, oh yeah, the femme fatales, and it's like, well, not necessarily. I mean, I'm showing a lot of movies where that is not the case.
Yeah,
I mean, we're showing three Colleen Gray movies, never the
yeah,
femme fatale. We're
yeah,
showing Ella Raines movies, never
yeah.
the femme fatale. So you get a balance, but the point of it all is that it's female centric. That it's mainly the focus is on the women, even if they aren't the protagonist and maybe the antagonist. It's still that's we're going to direct the festival so that the women remain the focus.
Yeah. And you guys can go to norcity.com to read all about the festival and buy passes
Indeed.
and tickets and see the schedule and all that good stuff.
Indeed. Yes, Alan Johnson of the San Francisco Chronicle did a nice
Hmm.
preview of the festival and that's online now. Thank you for sharing that. And he
Oops.
included. What's up with that?
I don't know.
My default microphone has changed, and you lost me. That's not good. There I am again. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. I don't
Okay.
know. I'm going to click OK on that, and hopefully we're just going to resume. There was a little glitch right there. I don't know. That hasn't happened in a long time.
No, very long time.
Um, but it was nice that we can, the cat's out of the bag, and everybody now knows that Alicia Malone is coming out for first weekend from Friday to Monday. Alicia will be co-hosting the festival with me. And then it looks like a little surprise that she and I are going to actually record some things for Turner Classic Movies at the theater. Not when the audience not when the audience is there.
Yeah.
But we'll do because we both are getting nights on Turner Classic Movies to talk about our upcoming books.
Oh.
So Alicia is hosting a night where I'm showing 3 films with actresses from Dark City Dames. And then we're doing a night because Alicia has a book coming out of international films, TCM Imports, her 52 foreign language films that you should see that are her favorites. And it's very interesting the way she arranged it. She arranged it by like a year calendar, watching a film,
film a year.
Every a film a week.
Sorry,
a film every week for a year. And so she kind of tied the movies into the time of year in which she suggests you watch them, which is an interesting idea. And so she's picked 3 movies, and then I'm going to co-host that with her. And we're going to record those at the Grand Lake Theater on Monday, the 27th. So anyway, that's that story. So yes, it's going to be good fun. I think everybody kind of needs this right now to just kind of escape and be with your folks, with your tribe, as they say. So I'm looking forward to it.
Very cool. I mean, I'm looking forward to, and this will air the night before we start. So tomorrow will be the beginning of the festival.
Okay, good. So Alicia will be arriving as people are watching this. She gets in kind of late, so we'll be getting her ensconced and then ready to roll the next day. That's good.
Very cool.
Okay, shall we get rolling here?
Yeah, sure. So probably hold on.
Yes. This is all important.
Yes. You see
Ta-da!
that I once again won the Dan Duryea Award. Second year in a row.
Second year in a row, recipient of the Dan Duryea Award. Now, what's intriguing about this, Anne, is that we don't really know who bestows this award on you.
I do not.
It's
a mystery.
It's pretty great. And I apologize because whoever they are, they've been waiting patiently for us to make mention of this because it was shipped to me. But I didn't know what it was. And so the box was addressed to me, but then there was a lovely letter inside. And I'm reading the letter, and it says the enclosed is for Anne. And of course, it was all packed up, so I never looked at it. And the damn box, let's just put it this way. I don't get into San Francisco as often as I used to. So the damn box was sitting by my front door for like 6 months, waiting for me to deliver it to you, which finally happened a couple of days ago. And I'm glad that it's the second Duryea Award.
Yes, so it will go. Like I said to you, I'm having ambitions of Edith Head and having a desk full of them. Like she had her desk full of Oscars.
No one is quite sure what you have to do to qualify for the Duryea Award, or if anyone else is even qualified to win the Duryea Award. It may be you alone, Anne. You may be it. But well deserved. Well deserved.
Okay. And very, very much appreciated. It's nice to have my work acknowledged. I appreciate it very, very much.
That is, and I have to say, when I travel around, people are always asking, how's Anne? Where's Anne? When is Anne going to come to this? So you have your fans out there. It's pretty great.
That's awesome. Okay, now we can start with questions.
Okay. You want to kick it off?
I'll kick it off. First one's from Hallie. My question is about the timing of NOIR City Hollywood / TCM Film Festival. Is it a go this year? Are there dates for NOIR City yet? Please do tell, as I have to book my flight from New York.
Well, obviously, I'm going on the assumption that there is a festival, although there's touch and go there because, when the fires got into the Hollywood Hills and started coming down the hill, it's like, holy cow, this is getting dangerously close to where everything happens, TCM and the Noir City Festival and all that. But for now, it is definitely a go. We're putting the schedule together. The dates are March 20th to the 30th. We're not in April this year. We're going to be in March, and not close to the TCM Classic Film Festival, which I believe starts on April 24th this year and will be done on the 30th of March. So unfortunately, folks who were thinking of traveling in to do both, that's not going to work out this year. I'm not really at liberty to say why that is, but there is a reason for it, and quite honestly, I'm not sure. The next thing I'd have to report is I'm not sure whether we're doing 10 consecutive days or whether we're doing 2 big long weekends. Like we might go Friday to Sunday and then be dark Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then go Thursday to Sunday to finish it out. Whichever way we go, it'll probably end up being the same number of films. It's just remains to be seen. You have to realize that we work with the American Cinematheque and the American Cinematheque works with us, but Netflix owns the theater. And you know, the Noir City Festival was kind of grandfathered in when Netflix bought the theater as one of the essential festivals that would remain there. But sometimes we get into scheduling things because Netflix has ideas for other things they want to do, but what's great is they leave the weekends open, but there may be screenings that they need to have on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So we may break the festival into 2 parts. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And what the hell was I going to say? It'll come back to me.
Okay.
Oh, I know what I was going to say. So if you go to noircity.com or you go to our news page or you get our newsletter, we have a box with festival dates. And when festival dates are confirmed, it goes in that box. So you can always check there. And you know, we update that.
Right. That's the home page on the website, noircity.com.
Yes.
Yes. So when we know the dates, as you say, it goes up on that site. So because we do get a lot of questions about that. Okay. Should I do the next one or?
Yes.
This is Dennis from Champlain, New York. Says, so I treated myself to a Christmas gift, the updated Dark City Lost World of Film Noir, and I'm loving it. Good. I like hearing that. Thank you, Dennis. I love that it's so different from the earlier edition. I'm especially in love with Lana Turner on the cover. Oh yeah, John Garfield's there too. My question is, how much fun was that to revisit the book and give it such a massive update? Well, thanks, Dennis, and I appreciate your considering it a massive update because you obviously did a comparison. There was a lot of new material in there, and it was incredibly gratifying to do that. It's something I'd been intending to do for a long time, and partly the reason was because 3 of the new chapters were intended for the original edition of the book, but it was cut down before it ever got to that point. So the chapter about newspaper noir, the chapter about, God, I'm going to forget what it is now, the chapter about prison noir, and honestly, there was one other full chapter that was new to this edition. I'm embarrassed I can't remember what it is. Those were intended for the original and never written, so it was nice to finally get to do them and then expand some of the material within each chapter. And quite honestly, the most important thing to remember, Dennis, is the Film Noir Foundation did not exist in any way, shape, or form when that first volume was written. So a lot of the films that I talk about in the new edition are films that we rescued, right? So like Woman on the Run and The Man Who Cheated Himself and stuff like that was not, Too Late for Tears was like mentioned, but not really discussed in it. Because those are all films that nobody could see back then. So it was like, why am I even writing about them? So it was great to have the chance to include all of those. So thanks much, and I appreciate how much you love it. I know you did, because you used the word love 3 times in that one paragraph. So that was good. That does my heart good.
And this is probably a good time to let people know that he bought that for himself in 2023. These questions are from November 2023.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah. So there's multiple books since then, Dennis. So yeah, that's good.
Okay, and
we'll see how you like the revised and updated Dark City Dames.
I'm looking forward to it, because I love the original very, very much, as I've said multiple times. John from Bethesda. I recently listened to an interview you did with a podcaster about your new children's book, and you mentioned that it was geared towards readers ages 4 to 8. That got me wondering how many film noirs from the classic period might be out there that would be appropriate for an 8-year-old. I'm thinking The Window might be one, but I'm not sure if Night of the Hunter would be. God, no. Also, any chance that Kitty Farrell might be optioned for a movie along the lines of Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I know nothing about film interest in the book. That I've fielded no inquiries in that regard. I don't even know if there's going to be a second one. As for, it's funny, when he mentioned Night of the Hunter, you said, "Oh God, no." But I'm curious as to why, because I have always thought of Night of the Hunter as a children's fairy tale, and so I think it is a kids movie. I mean, it's obviously an adult movie, and I mean,
yeah.
And that we had that story in the NOIR City magazine recently about the true crime that it's based on, which is certainly not a children's story. But when I read that and learned all of that, it made me all the more interested in the way Charles Laughton sort of treated it like a really dark fairy tale, because it is kind of from the kid's perspective a lot of the time.
No, I mean, it's very much. I mean, maybe older kids, but that Robert Mitchum would have given me trauma when I was a kid.
I think kids are a little weirder.
Really
kids are tougher today, I think. Kids,
I don't know. They seem really sheltered to me.
Well, sheltered, but I'd just be curious. I'd love to show that movie to some 8 and 10-year-olds and see what their reaction is, because considering the overabundance of psychotic material that kids are exposed to today, just through streaming or anything, that they might find Mitchum kind of goofy in that movie at this point. I don't know, I mean,
depending on the age of the kid, I just still, like, I had trauma from Tony Curtis's film Houdini. Like, when he died in that film, like, I had trauma from that for years, because I saw it when I was really young, when he drowns.
Yeah.
And that just, like, it stuck with me for so long, which is, I was very peeved when I found out that it's not even really true.
It's not true.
They changed it for the film. It's like, you mean I had those years of childhood trauma for nothing? It's not even true.
I'm trying to remember if there was any film that traumatized me, but anyway, the point of this question, I would definitely say The Window. I mean, it's unnerving for kids, but spoiler alert, I mean, it ends well.
Yeah.
Of course, that it's funny that what's the one thing in The Window that you could not do in a movie today? Probably.
What's that?
It's when Paul Stewart punches Bobby Driscoll in the face and knocks him out, which is so fantastic. And anyway, it is interesting how kids get treated in stuff today, like the outcry that there would be if you made that film now and you had him punch a kid right in the face to shut him up. Talk About a Stranger, that one with Billy Gray, photographed by John Alton. It's like a Boy Cried Wolf thing where he he believes his neighbor poisoned his dog,
Oh yeah.
and so he's going to get even with the neighbor, and he doesn't understand the backstory, the neighbor's backstory. That's a a story, with a real moral to it, and it's a good film, photographed by John Alton. And then there's Shadow on the Wall. You've seen that, right? Zachary Scott and Anne Southern and Gigi Perot, who's delightful and still around, and she's actually introduced that film with me, I think, a couple of times. That's a really good one with a child protagonist. One that I would definitely recommend, probably above all the others, although it's not truly a hardcore noir, is Curse of the Cat People.
Oh, I think that is the best film about childhood imagination that I've ever seen. I adore that film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would definitely recommend that. And another film that I've revisited recently that's really great about childhood and movies, and it's not a film noir, but it's great, is Spirit of the Beehive. Have you seen that?
No, I need
Spanish
to watch
film?
that. Yeah.
Spirit of the Beehive is pretty great.
Yeah.
And it revolves around these two girls in a little, very, very small town in Spain, watching a road show of Frankenstein back in the day, and then their imaginations leading to their investigation of a house where they think Frankenstein actually is, and all this. It's pretty great. It's a pretty great movie.
Yeah, and also it was a great band named after it.
It called Spirit of the Beehive?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
How about that? Okay. Yeah. And interestingly, Close Your Eyes, which is a relatively new film, is by the same director who hadn't made a film in 30 years.
Oh wow.
Or something. And there's a new one that our friend Imogen has raved about. I haven't seen it yet, but that's Close Your Eyes, which I'm very much looking forward to seeing. Okay.
Sorry, that's also the name of a very good British film. So Close Your Eyes, I mean. Okay.
Okay.
You do not. Question 4, please.
Oh, okay. In the true crime issue of Noir City magazine, hold on one second. I can't see too well, even though I have my glasses on this time. Eddie wrote a survey of movies based on true crimes. Indeed, I did. I was intrigued by the entry about 14 Hours from 1951, in which suicidal Robert Cossack, played by Richard Basehart, I guess this is perches on the 17th floor ledge. It says pervs. I don't think he pervs on the ledge. He perches on the 17th floor ledge of a Manhattan building. I was amazed about the story of the altered ending and the film being pulled from theaters. Are there any versions of the film with the original ending, or a Blu-ray with both endings available? You wish, Mark from Scotland. It's hard enough to see 14 Hours, let alone the original version of 14 Hours. If people don't know about this, and I did actually write about it, in Dark City. It's based on a true story. A guy named John Ward, who, threatened to jump from the Gotham Hotel. I think it was 1933 or something when this story happened. And in real life, he did either jump or fall, and he died. And then in the movie, that was the movie version. That's how it was going to end, sticking to the facts. But Spiros Skoros, who was the production chief at Fox, his daughter killed herself jumping from her hospital room at Bellevue Hospital in New York, right when the film opened. And Daryl Zanuck thought, this is really hurtful, and he ordered the film withdrawn, and then they changed the ending so that Richard Basehart would live at the end of the film. And it's hard to believe, but it's very weird. But they were unable to get Basehart to come back and film anything, so he just kind of it's just a body that's kind of pulled into the building from the ledge. You never see his face, and he disappears from the movie. There's still it, once it reaches that climax, there's still like 2 minutes of the film to go, but you never see Basehart again. You just know that he was pulled to safety. Very, very weird. But it would be wonderful to think that there's a print, at least one print that existed of the original film, but trying to get that release now, next to impossible. Now that Disney owns Fox, the priority level on that would be about as low as you could possibly get for Disney. And Fox never did a Blu-ray. I mean, 14 Hours was part of that whole film noir series that Fox did. Back in the early part of this century, they put out all the Fox films, and they were very popular. But then right at the end, there were some that had rights issues, like the Brasher doubloon and stuff like that. And right at the end, they just kind of chopped the whole thing off. And there were a few Fox noir films that never got released. 14 Hours was released on DVD, and our buddy Foster Hirsch, I believe, did the commentary for it. But I doubt you will. I don't know who's going to pull that out and put it on a Blu-ray. I just don't know. It's become a very obscure film. Like, I don't know if Kino or somebody like that would do it. Kino has a great relationship with Universal. They've been putting out a lot of Universal noirs, but it's harder to get the Fox stuff and get it back in circulation. Wish it was better news. Sorry, Mark.
And this next question is Joe from Suffolk County, New York. My wife and I discovered Vera on BritBox. While not exactly noir, I think it is noir stained with a somewhat depressed detective and shadowy settings. I decided to give the first novel a go. How did a 560-page novel become a 90-minute episode? I rewatched the episode and was very impressed by how the script eliminated characters, made plot changes, and even changed the point of view. It managed to tell the story well. In my opinion, the episode was better than the novel. Have either of you read or watched Vera? I think in film noir, the screenwriters have an advantage of relatively short novels. What are some of your favorite adaptations from page to screen? Do you generally recommend reading first or watching first?
Interesting. Have you seen this show, Vera?
No, I've heard good things about it before, but I haven't seen it. My mom.
No, I have not seen it either, and I don't even know what it is. So this is one of the reasons I like doing this show, because people send stuff in and it's like, I don't know what that is. Interesting. So I will look for that, but I'm glad that Joe submitted a more general question at the end there, because we can't help him out on Vera, but thank you, Joe, for the suggestion of watching it. I will. So anyway, longer stuff turned into film noir. I'm trying to think of like what's a big book. But Joe makes an interesting point that a lot of this noir stuff, they're like all the Kane stuff are novellas. Kane, I mean, Mildred Pierce is kind of a novel, but Double Indemnity and Postman are both novellas. And yeah, most crime fiction is certainly not like a novel. I mean, a book that I can think of right off the top that was like a novel, a best-selling novel adapted, was Leave Her to Heaven, which a lot of people don't really even think of as a film noir. I mean, I of course do, but and yeah, they streamlined that considerably, and I think improved it in some ways. I mean, I'm just trying to think of what I hate to say this because we always talk about it, but the best adaptation of a noir, quote unquote noir book to film is The Maltese Falcon. I mean, it's the best, most faithful and best cast adaptation of a novel. And so is The Asphalt Jungle, which is also, hey, what do those have in common, right? John Huston, who had such respect for the written word that doesn't surprise me that, he also adapted The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, another
And,
great novel.
and James Joyce, which is probably, the most difficult writer to adapt into
Exactly. Go.
cinema.
Great point. Yeah. And I mean, and he tried. It's not a big book, but I recently read Lillian Ross's book Picture
Yeah.
about Houston trying to make the Red Badge of Courage,
Yeah,
which
I've
is
read that.
yeah, it's a great book. I mean,
Yeah.
that was like one of the earliest examples of really insider film writing
Yeah.
that I can recall. It was really good. But you see that Houston has that's how he leans toward literary adaptation.
Well, he
Um,
also cast Audie Murphy in it for people that don't know. And the story is about a soldier with cowardice, which of course is opposite if you've read about Audie's war record,
yeah.
which was intentional on Houston's part. But it is also one of Audie Murphy's best performances. And Audie really, really liked working with Houston a lot. I wish they could have done more together. He wanted him for Reflections in a Golden Eye, and Elizabeth Taylor insisted on Marlon Brando, who I thought sucked in that film. And that's up there with me. What's that? Moonstruck. For Nicolas Cage's part, they originally wanted to cast Peter Gallagher, but Cher insisted on Nicolas Cage. And I think that film, I mean, I love Peter Gallagher as a comedic actor. I just can't even imagine what that would have been like. Watch Tune In tomorrow and you'll see what a great
Okay.
actor
All right.
Peter Gallagher is. Plus Peter Fox in that. Sorry, we got off topic. So yeah, and I think sometimes too, like with Mildred Pierce, like I prefer the film adaptation on that one. And I think when you saw that like five parts, felt like 5 parts adaptation of it that they did with
Yeah.
Mildred Pierce, like you
Yeah.
can see
Todd
why
Haynes.
it doesn't work as a
Yeah.
piece
I
of
mean, it
fiction.
was, yes. I mean, I didn't mind Todd Haynes's adaptation of it, but
Nice.
I
Yeah.
clearly understood, like, if you want to understand how a novel can become a film noir, Mildred Pierce
Yeah.
is a perfect example because they put the killing in right at the front. The way the whole thing is structured, it was very much in the spirit of the time, with everything being revealed in flashback and all. So yeah, Mildred Pierce is a really good example of a novel being adapted into a film noir. Um, I'm just trying to think if there are any other ones that are escaping me right now. Well, the ultimate example of taking a huge novel and paring it down into something streamlined for noir is The Human Beast. Emile Zola's novel that became La Bête Humaine when Renoir made it in the 30s, and then when Fritz Lang did it with Glenn Ford and Gloria Graham in the 50s. That's a massive, sprawling, multi-part narrative that covered many, many novels and the lives of these families in France. And it just takes that one section about the one character, right? That Gabin and Glenn Ford play, and just focuses on that. So I mean, that's not just streamlining, that's like pulling something out of a massive tapestry and pulling out this one thread that they made the movie out of. And I much prefer the Renoir film to the Fritz Lang version, but they both have a lot to recommend. And as for Joe's question about do you recommend reading first or seeing first, I have absolutely no preference in that regard, as long as you do both, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't even have to, but there's no right way to do it. I mean, if you watch In a Lonely Place, it's really, really interesting to go back and read the book and see how different it is. And if you read the book first, you're going to be really surprised by the movie.
Yeah.
You may think that the movie's a bit of a letdown if you read the book first, but just because the book is darker. It seems the book is darker, but if you really get into the movie, you realize this it's as dark, but also different for a movie, and that it's not a melodrama. It avoids the melodrama of the genre. It's I hate to use that as a pejorative in terms of that novel, like say, oh, it's a genre novel, because it's a little deeper than that. But the movie is hard to classify as a crime movie. It's a little deeper than that. Anyway,
Yeah.
I hope that helps, Joe from Suffolk County. Thanks for the question. Okay, Wes has a question regarding a sort of Christmas noir. You showed it. Hold on. This is going to be one of these. Can I remember the film? You showed it a number of years ago. It's a tale set in a bank that goes in. Yes, I know this film. The plot is somewhat extortion-like and almost Twilight Zone feel in its ambience. I'm searching for a copy. Good news is it's on DVD and Blu-ray, I believe, or at least the opportunity to see it again. Are you able to provide the name of this short but intriguing little film? Yes, Wes, so I hope you got that. No, just kidding. It's called Cash on Demand, with your favorite Andre Morel, right? Am I right?
Peter Cushing
and Peter Cushing, yeah. Set in England on a bank as it's about to close for the Christmas holiday, and it's a version of A Christmas Carol, because Peter Cushing is like Scrooge, and this guy comes in to rob the bank, and it's fantastic.
Great it
movie.
is, and it's on the Hammer set, which is on Blu-ray now. So there's a really nice Hammer set that came out, and it's on there. And the snorkel is on that set as well.
Yes.
And never take candy from a stranger if you want to get really upset, because that's about the trial of a wealthy guy who molested this girl, and it's very ahead of its time, but it's also very, it's upsetting, but it's good.
Yep. I'm getting a lot of requests to play more British noir on Noir Alley. So, I mean, I have shown, as Wes points out, I have shown Cash on Demand as a Christmas movie before, and I may come back and show it again. I'm trying to get the rights to show Who Killed Santa Claus, which was our Christmas movie at Noir City Christmas last month. I'm trying to get that so we can show it on TCM next holiday season. We'll see how that works out. But Cash on Demand is always a good backup.
Yes. So
I'm glad I could answer that one for you, Wes.
Yeah. Okay. So this is from Michael from Post Fall, Idaho. I recently watched. Recently being last year. I recently
you shouldn't keep throwing that in, and you don't have to let people know how far behind we are.
I recently watched the 1957 noir Affair in Havana. Though the plot involved the much used James and Cain-like romantic triangle, I found the film watchable for a number of reasons. First, it was shot entirely on location and shows Cuba as it existed shortly before Castro's revolutionary forces first landed. Second, it features a young John Cassavetes in a starring role. Finally, according to IMDb, it was the last movie Raymond Burr made before taking on the role of Perry Mason. The latter is the most interesting because Burr appeared as a close-cropped blonde, playing a man paralyzed in a wheelchair, a circumstance he would later use on Ironside. Have either of you seen this independently produced film, and does Eddie have any background on Dudley Productions?
No, not really. I mean, I have seen the film, and yeah, it's Raymond Burr. I mean, he did have the lighter hair in a couple of other movies, right? The Whip Hand, I believe he's a blonde, and of course, Rear Window, he has the gray hair, white hair, and if just as throwing this out, and also it's weird. Castro's forces, did they land? They came out of the hills. I mean, it wasn't that they were landing in Cuba. It was they were already in Cuba. They were just all up in the hills. And another good movie for that is Lady Without Passport, for a look at Havana uh, prior to the revolution. Lady Without Passport is a that's like the high point of the film, is just seeing stuff shot on location in Havana. Um, I mean, that's about. I don't have a lot to add about that. I think Laszlo Benedict was the director of that film, and yeah, I kind of wish Cassavetes had made more like noir films in this period, but he did do Johnny Staccato, the TV show, which fulfills every John Cassavetes Jones you could have. If you want to see him in something noir like, Johnny Staccato is the ticket. But really, beyond that, I honestly I haven't seen Affair in Havana for like 20 years, so it's not fresh in my mind. I might revisit it, see if it's something that is worthy of Noir Alley. And you've
I'm
seen
just
some pretty bad stuff on Noir Alley, so
I'm trying to remember if that was film. There was a film where this young actress was doing a film in Cuba, and she got stuck there, and George Raft wound up getting her out of the country. Because
huh?
Raft had connections in Cuba. It was really weird. And I can't remember what production the young woman was. She was kind of like, young actress, and she kind of got stranded there, and like Raft got her out. Anyway, if anybody
Huh?
knows what the film was or who the actress was, you can throw it in the
Interesting.
comments. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Michael. I couldn't give you more info on that one, but that's how it goes sometimes. Okay, Bill Koch or Coach or Koch in Pleasant Hill, California, not far from me. Writes in. He says, I'm an inveterate viewer of Eddie and Ann, and also totally habituated listening to old time radio shows. Oh, this is for you, Ann. He listens as he drifts off to sleep each night. Go to programs include Suspense, Box 13, Inner Sanctum, Dimension X, Dragnet, CBS Radio Mystery Hour, Lights Out, Quiet Please. And this is obviously meant for you. I believe that you're an authority on these kind of shows and would love to tap into your knowledge about what I'm missing that's on YouTube, which would expand my choices. Do you happen to know of a book or publication that is rooted in this aspect of entertainment? Thanks in advance, Anne. See, it was directed directly because I don't know my old time radio that well.
Yeah, well, I mean, the number one thing I would say is the Jack Benny program. Like, I consider that, the greatest radio show of all time. Jack might be the greatest comedian. I mean, mainly because his humor still lands today.
Yeah.
Like when you go back and listen to somebody like Fred Allen, who's funny, but Jack and his writers really rooted their comedy and very relatable human personality, and it still really works. And if you're an old film fan, then there's also the bonus was that they would do little film adaptations on the second half of the show sometimes, which are very funny. And I know on this show a couple times I've laughed when we've been talking about the film because I'll remember the parody they did it
Mm-hmm.
on Jack's show. And of course, The Shadow, which is another really just classic radio show that I just cannot recommend enough. And I'm seeing the liking of the mysteries. So I would also say The Whistler, which of course was adapted into films. So those are awesome shows. I really like, if you get into comedy, especially if you get into Jack Benny, then Alice Faye had a show after she left
Mm.
Fox. She and Phil Harris, was her
Mm-hmm.
husband, was a regular on Jack and who played Baloo in the Jungle Book, had a radio show together and they brought over a character from Jack's who was actually he actually really was a musician, but on Jack's show Rimley that they kind of turned into a joke, and So that was on the new show, played by uh Elliot Lewis, who is probably the most talented person on radio, both as an actor and a director and a writer. They actually nicknamed him Mr. Radio. So anyway, so those are all things that I love. And yes, I have two books. I pulled them out so I could share. One is The Great American Broadcast by Leonard Maltin, who
God bless
I
Leonard.
copy his autograph by him because I got his autograph. I think he was at the film festival, and I introduced myself and told him about the Radio Noir series I was writing for the magazine. He said, "Oh yeah, I've been reading that. I'm looking forward to your next article," which was one of the great moments of my life. I'm not gonna lie.
No,
So
I
yeah,
told Leonard's the greatest.
yeah, and it was very flattering for him to compliment my writing because he's a great writer. So anyway, so this is really great, and it's sort of more of it's a little more personal, and it's kind of like a bit of an overview. He also has this hilarious quote in it where he's talking about, like, you can't just have a character describing things on radio, and as he put it, you can't have this character describing to another character like they're a blind 5-year-old with with a mental deficiency. You can't. That's not how you write radio. Anyway,
Right,
so
right.
that's good for that. And then the big one though is the Encyclopedia of Old Time Radio, which sorry,
Wow.
and
That
that
book looks a little thick.
yeah. So it's just like this huge, just all these different entries on all sorts of things. It's like a encyclopedia, but that way, if you start getting interested in things, you can look it up and you find connections to other things.
Right.
And also, besides YouTube, there's also if you go to archive.org, they have a massive amount of radio, and there is a sort of a nonprofit group. They've gone through and like cleaned up radios and stuff, and they have like entire series of these really, really good sounding audio quality of different series that were on there. Oh, The Adventures of Sam Spade. How could I forget? With Howard Duff.
Howard Duff, yeah.
It's comedic, and then it was kind of interesting because he got essentially blacklisted off radio, and so they replaced him with a different actor, and they actually got backlash from the radio listening public that were really peeved that they got rid of
Yeah.
Duff, which was pretty cool. Yeah. So anyway, that's all my recommendations, I guess.
Fantastic. Yeah, that reminded me of like when William Tallman was let go from Perry Mason, and the public wrote in and said, "We don't care what this guy's accused of doing. We want him back. He is Hamilton Berger," and that was pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, I haven't listened to an old radio show in so long. I used to do it when I was younger. There was on KSFO radio in San Francisco, Gene Nelson had the late night shift, and he would play old radio shows late at night. And honestly, that's how I learned all about radio, was because I just like Bill is saying here, I would fall asleep. I'd turn on the radio, I'd be in bed, I'd have it next to my head, and I'd listen to these radio shows and fall asleep. And so I should be interested in them because I would need to know the endings of a lot of these, because I would literally fall asleep listening to these shows. But I just remember how much I love them, and I love just the sound of the shows is because of all the Foley work and the special effects and the actors. It's pretty cool. And of course, that so many of the films we love had radio versions that are pretty fun to find and listen to and see a different actor or actress playing a character that from a film noir movie. And sometimes they recreate the part, like Dick Powell doing Philip Marlowe in Murder My Sweet on the radio. And then sometimes it's somebody else playing it.
Richard Diamond. God, I can't believe I forgot Richard Diamond. That is a great show. You can probably tell from the name of it, it was kind of a parody.
Yeah.
And and also, oh God, Pat Novak for Hire, which is hilarious, and it's Jack Webb.
That's Jack Webb, yeah.
Yeah, pre-Dragnet, and it's an intentional satire of the film noir detective, and he's with his delivery, it's just so fantastic. And some of the dialogue on that is just, I mean, that was a well-written show. And he originally produced it out of San Francisco, actually. And then it got a second life with they changed the name of the character, I think, when it went to LA, but it was originally a uh, San Francisco radio show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was also a the Harry Lime, the character from The Third Man, got a radio show just based on that character. That's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, and of course the British still do radio drama. And they adapted the Ripley novels, which are actually pretty good radio adaptations. The guy's American accent's a little off, but it's those are good, and there's been some good Agatha Christie adaptations too in recent years. A Poirot series, Anna Marple series, and a lot of other of her standalones too. And I was also going to tell people, if they're Woolrich fans, I swear every third episode of Suspense was a Woolrich story.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
For people that don't know that he was adapted a lot in radio, a lot.
Is there a Jack Benny? Jack Benny, like, there's nobody like Jack Benny today, is there?
No.
I mean, that approach to comedy, that really dry, droll humor, you don't see that much anymore. I can't even imagine comics now have to just beg. Sorry to comedian, but they have to beg for laughs.
Yeah.
They have to be so active and crazy and wild and everything. And Jack Benny was like the complete opposite of that.
I mean, he could literally use like a pause and you'd hear the audience start laughing. He was a master of that. And he was such a huge influence. Like Jerry Seinfeld was huge.
And well, Johnny Carson, his entire career was based on doing Jack Benny. So
yeah. So for people who have not experienced Jack Benny, he also had a TV series. So, there's that too. And if you do Jack Benny, Dan Duryea, I think our film noir fans will particularly enjoy that episode because they actually parody the Killers.
Wow. Okay. I haven't heard that. I got to go check that out.
And Dan plays one of the killers. They go into they call it the lunch counter murders, and he goes in, and then Dennis Day.
Bright boy.
Yeah, and Dennis Day plays his sidekick, and Dennis Day is basically imitating Dan Duryea. And people don't know who Dennis was. He was a tenor, but he was also a very good comedic actor, but he's also extremely good at impressions. So you guys can look that one up. That'll be you can slide in there.
Something else that you don't see that much anymore. People who make a living doing impressions. You just don't see it.
Yeah.
I think I may have mentioned this before. It's like that's because so many actors today do not have distinctive voices.
Yeah.
I mean, Matthew McConaughey has a very distinctive voice, and he's very easy to imitate, when he does that thing that he does. But not too many. You can't imitate Chris Hemsworth, or you don't know what they sound like. What do these people sound like?
So many of them look alike too. But I was just going to say really quickly, Bill Hader, he was on Stephen Colbert. It's not a clip on YouTube, but he does this impersonation of James Mason having an expired gift certificate for Dunkin' Donuts. And Hader is like also just saying that like he loves doing impressions, but he always does these impressions of people that people don't really know anymore. Even though he does a great Al Pacino. I mean, a great Al Pacino.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I've seen people do Jack Nicholson. I've seen, De Niro, all the Scorsese actors, De Niro and Joe Pesci and these guys. You can do the Mark Wahlberg you can kind of do an impression of Mark Wahlberg, but overall it's a lost art, I think. Anyway, next question is from Richard in Gualala, California. I have been to Gualala many times. in the November 30th, 2023 episode. Okay, that's only a year and a half ago. You pointed out that, Jesus, that certain films, and he says, I guess I said Shed No Tears as an example, suffered from weak direction. Please explain this. Okay, this is a good question.
Yeah, it's a great
Please
question.
explain how better direction can produce a superior film from the same script and the same actors. What are signs of good direction and poor direction? I love it. Thank you, Rick. Give examples of each with explanation. Thank you for being so direct.
And your essay is due by the next episode.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, when is the essay due? Exactly. Yes. But this is a really good question because I have always maintained that a director can't make a great film without a great script. But a great director can make something really, really good out of a mediocre script just by virtue of applying interest and empathy and style to it. You can get something really watchable out of it. So I'm going to try to think now off the top of my head of some examples of this. But I will just say that I know exactly what bad direction is. Bad direction is just getting it done. For example, I recently showed a film on Noir Alley, The Naked Alibi, or just Naked Alibi. Jerry Hopper directed this. Sorry, Marcia. He was married to Marcia Hunt. But he did such a poor job directing the movie that you really got the feeling it was a job. He was just getting through it. The camera placement is uninspired. He has no feeling really for the characters. It's kind of paint by numbers. Like, we have so much time to do this, put the camera where it's expedient to do it. And that movie was rescued by the cameraman, Russell Meddy, who put everything of interest. The shot itself that Hopper chose was uninteresting. But you could see Russell Meddy saying, but we'll make it interesting because I'm going to do something different with the lights here. I swear he demanded the camera move sometimes when Jerry Hopper's tendency was to just let it sit there. Obviously, you can tell simply, like in B movies, they don't have a lot of time. So much is played in master shots and they don't have any way to make the images interesting, cutting between actors. And of course, a lot of directors direct for the camera. Other directors direct for the performances, for the actors. Like Elia Kazan was an actor's director. The camera came second. And other times it's just like Orson Welles very often, he would cast some pretty weak performers on occasion in his movies. But he knew that he was going to carry the day because his style and his panache as a director would just overwhelm everything else, right? But anyway, that's my feeling about all of that. I think that the directors, this may be academic and so ridiculously obvious, but the difference is the level of care. The level of care and concern the director has for telling the story. Because I don't particularly like directors who put their personal style before the story. Although, this is especially true of old Hollywood, that could be the only way they would get a watchable movie out of a really trite, cliched script, is like just injecting a ton of personal style into it. I mean, that's when you see stuff like Joseph H. Lewis's early movies. He was just being a very aggressive, assertive director and making sure you noticed it, right? Like he would make things more visually interesting than they needed to be. And a lot of times producers would either love that, like, thanks for giving us something more than we expected. And a lot of times they hated it because it was like, we don't want to spend the extra money just so that you can fart around and have the camera go 360 degrees around a courtroom or something. Who cares? Well, is it about your interest in the movie, or is it about the money you're spending, right? So these issues never go away. Right? Hence Noir Alley now being shot in a bar instead of a studio set, right?
Yeah.
Somebody thought the money was more important than the production, right? And
Yeah.
it's just as simple as that.
Yeah. And I think for me too, great directors are the ones who can do moments, so like when I was doing my cable access show many years ago, I was doing one on Ozu. And I was talking about one of his films where this is this really incredible scene where the grown-ups are eating like birthday cake, but they want to hide it from the kid in the house. And it's just like this amazing domestic moment. My friend who helped me you know, direct the show for me always teased me about that I thought this great moment was like this birthday cake moment, and said, yeah, but it conveys everything about the characters and their interactions and all this stuff. So I like films like that. Like earlier, you were talking about The Window, where, you couldn't show a kid getting punched in the face. My Danish film Flickering Lights, which is, as you know, one of my favorite films by my favorite current writer director. There's a scene that builds up where they're blowing eggs. So these four criminals and one of the criminals' girlfriend, and you're building the tension and building the tension, and finally, like, kind of the leader of this group of guys like punches this woman in the face, which you couldn't get away with. And it's actually funny. Like, normally that wouldn't be, but it's just that moment of sort of everything breaking apart, and it's like the build up to it. You see the guys around him getting more and more, nervous, and that's great comedic timing. So I think that's to me. And or like my favorite scene from The Searchers by my all-time favorite director, John Ford, is just that scene when they're about to leave, and one character is sitting at this table. Oh God, it's not Ward Bond, it's the other, Victor McLaughlin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Is sitting at the table eating, and John Wayne and his sister-in-law is standing behind them, and she's giving him his code. And like, just from this scene, you can see this entire history between him and his sister-in-law that clearly is in love with her, and she and his brothers. You can just see it all play out. But also in the foreground, that character is pretending not to notice.
Right.
And it's shot in a wide shot because Ford loved those. And it's just an incredible moment in the film because you get this entire history of this and everybody's awareness of it, in just this moment, and it gives such an emotional impact later when she's killed. That this is a devastating blow for him. So so for me, that's those kind of things when people can really, and obviously I'm a very character-driven viewer. Like, I like to have empathy with the characters. So I like to understand the stories and their psychology and what's going on with them. And I also like watching foreign films. And, I think the thing that Ozu did really well was most of his films were sort of in the domestic space. And he started as a silent filmmaker, and he worked through the 60s. And it's like you see the whole history of Japan through the course of his work, in in the intimate history, what was going on in people's homes, how things affected them, and what changed and what didn't. He's just, obviously I'm not alone in thinking he's a master. He is. Just a great thing. So that's me.
No, I get you. But it's very interesting because I chose to answer this in a very generic way because I've discovered over time, like, a great director cares. He cares about the characters. He cares about the storytelling. He cares about the cumulative effect of the story being told more than he cares about his style or his direction or anything, which is why you can have so many different, like Ozu and Orson Welles couldn't be more different as directors. I mean, they're totally the opposite as the way they approach a film, but no one can question their commitment to the film and what they're doing. I mean, but sometimes I do think that directors get credit for stuff that is actually written in the script.
Yeah.
And which is why I'm leery sometimes of the moment, as you describe it, because I cannot tell you how many people talk about, and I've written about this, so I'm just using this as an example, talk about the big heat and the coffee in Gloria Graham's face,
Well,
and it's all
yeah,
Fritz Lang. Fritz Lang does it. Oh, it's Fritz Lang's misogyny. Fritz Lang hates women. That's why he throws the coffee. And it's like, it's in the story. It's in the book,
yeah,
right? It's in the book. It's in the script. I mean, Fritz Lang shot that exactly as it was written.
yeah,
You actually, to the point where virtually any director who was given that assignment would have shot it the same way, would have shot that moment the same way. But it's the total approach to the material. I mean, Fritz Lang's handling of the entire movie is so good. It's so well paced. He knows exactly how much time to give to each moment within a scene. But anyway, it's just, there's so much that goes into it. It's just unbelievable. You know,
yeah.
by
And
virtue of the fact that they always say a director's job is to hold the whole film in his or her head, so that they're the only ones that really understands the totality of it. So in a sense, a great director is somebody who can do that and balance the artistic expectations versus the economic realities of, we have so much time and so much money to get it done. So a great director can balance all that out, as opposed to those who freak and get cowed by the fact that we don't have enough time, we don't know how to do this, and they crumble, you know, and then they become what my old buddy Tab Hunter described as a traffic cop.
yeah,
They're just directing traffic to get everybody home on time.
yeah, yeah. And I
So
think too, it's important to point out that one, there's some really great writer directors too. So people that write like Jensen, my favorite writer director right now, who's Danish, he's a screenwriter by trade. That's the majority of his work, and then every once in a while he comes up with an idea that he keeps to himself, and he also co-writes a lot with directors. Um, so I think that the writer director is kind of interesting concept, but also like John Ford worked with a lot of the same writers over
yeah.
and over again, and that's the thing you have to look at too, is these directors a lot of times will you work with the same writer or work with the same cinematographer, editor, uh, and that makes a really big difference too, because like, editing is a really important process. And so you can see some directors always use the same editor, or like
Mm-hmm.
with
Oh yeah.
Hammer Studios, a lot of those great scripts are written by the same person, so that, it's like, I mean, yeah, I don't know that you can make a great film without a great story and a great script. I don't know if that's
No,
possible.
it can't be great.
Yeah.
It can be really good. It can be very entertaining. It can be hugely satisfying, but it can't really be great without a great script. It's interesting. The other day on Noir Alley, I showed Deadline at Dawn, and that's the only film directed by Harold Clurman, who is a theater director. And I know that William Cameron Menzies came in and directed parts of it because Clurman, I think, was a little overmatched when it came to how to do stuff with a camera on a set as opposed to a theater stage. And this time watching the film, I was just really struck by, it was obvious to me which sequences were directed completely by Cameron Menzies, because he has such a distinctive way of framing compositions, a lot of space in the top of the frame, and his dramatic positioning of actors, as opposed, like with Clurman, it was funny. I don't think he saw it when he was directing on stage, like he was looking through a viewfinder. And I think his blocking of scenes was not as dramatic as Menzies, who saw everything in a frame because he was a designer to begin with and he drew everything out. And you can just see the way he positions people within a frame. And then his love of going from tight close ups to big wide shots to put the characters in their element is indicative of his style. And he had a way of shooting close ups that was far more dramatic than the way somebody like Harold Clurman would do it, who by his very nature was kind of unfamiliar with the idea of a close-up, being a stage director, you know. Anyway, thank you for this question, Richard. It's bigger and more. I mean, this is like writing a history of cinema or attempting to explain directors to in one quick shot here. I mean, it's so deep and all encompassing, but it is an interesting thing to think about, you know.
And it is Ward Bond to the Searchers.
Okay, it is Ward Bond.
Joe on Long Island. Is the transition from Marion's white lingerie with Sam to her black lingerie with $40,000 sitting on her bed the greatest segue in film noir history? She's going home early with her headache, and then boom, larceny.
That's good. I just like this question, Joe, because you're referring to Psycho as film noir. Thank you for that, because that was one of the few kind of controversial things that I put in Dark City in the original edition, was that Psycho was sort of the symbolic end of the film noir era, because it starts out as a crime film and ends as a horror movie, and that was very symbolic, I thought. But I don't know what to tell you, Joe. That is a great segue, the white to black underwear on Janet Leigh. And I'm going to make a suggestion here as to why, because, you know, Hitchcock now, the revisionist history on Hitchcock is that, you know, he was kind of a perv and he was very hard on the actresses and all this kind of stuff. But I'm going to say the use of Janet Leigh in her underwear in the beginning of that film is vital. Beyond never, if you have an opportunity to have Janet Leigh in her underwear, I say take it. But the reason it's so important is because when she gets to the hotel and when she undresses before the big shower scene, I think it's vitally important that we have already seen her undressed, so that doesn't become the focus of the scene in the motel. When she's spied on through the peephole, right, by Norman, the audience has a different reaction. They would have a different reaction if they hadn't already seen her in her underwear earlier. Then they'd be like, oh my God, oh, Janet Leigh, is she really going to take her clothes? Oh, are we going to see her in her underwear? Oh, yeah. Which you don't want, because what Hitchcock did by showing her in her underwear, her black underwear earlier, is like, you've seen it. You've seen it now. And so your focus is not on that. You're really thinking like, oh my God, you're thinking more about Norman. Like, what's the deal with this guy? You know, I mean, this is really weird. Anyway, and as I've said many times before, everybody talks about the brilliance of Psycho, which I completely agree with. My favorite scene in the movie is the dialogue scene between Norman and God, I'm drawing a blank now. Marion, but I'm Marion Marie Samuels. The scene in the back room of the motel, where after she checks in, it's like, that's my favorite scene in the movie, because it's so well written. So there you go. That's that's what I have to say about that, because it's one of those things that, you know this, Anne, because you're a horror movie fan. To have that moment between those two characters before the big murder scene, it just humanizes that so much that all the power of the film to me is in that dialogue scene. In hindsight, right? Yeah. It's extraordinary because you don't realize when you're watching it, but you're watching the killer and the killer's victim have this very profound existential conversation. and she thinks it's all been resolved by the end of that scene. She thinks, okay, I made up my mind. I'm going to go back and repent and face the music. And to me, that's what gives that film its depth, is that scene. Anyway,
Yep.
what?
So, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so I saw Nosferatu.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. What are you seeing?
Yeah, I saw Nosferatu. My friend Nathan and I went. I mean, it was good. I don't think it's the best film of the year. I don't think it's the best horror film of the year. It was actually kind of low on my list of best horror films of the year. And it was so funny because I was watching a preview for it afterwards, and one of the critics said, "Oh, it transcends horror, the horror genre." And it's just like, screw you. It
Sometimes
was
you don't want things to transcend something. You want them to be a fabulous example of the genre or whatever.
Yeah, and it's just like it's a horror film. I mean, it's a vampire movie. I mean, I thought it was
Yeah.
good. Like it was physically very beautiful, right? I mean, the scenery, the set work, all that was good. And my friend pointed out the problem with the film is Nosferatu is not really a character in the film. I mean, he's there, but they don't do anything to develop his character the way that like Murnau and Herzog did, where he feels like something within himself. And I thought they were yeah, I don't know. It was good. I just didn't think, like I said, it was fairly low when I went to rank my favorites
Yeah.
here. But I mean, it was good. And I would definitely say if you're going to see it in a theater
Yeah.
because the visuals are really stunning, and that's that. And I'm not sure how well some of the acting would play on the small screen either. It's a little rough.
I'm glad that Robert Eggers gets to make these movies.
Mhm.
I don't understand exactly how that works. Do you think if he did not have a horror, an instinct, let's say, for horror, and not everything that he's done has been horror, but that's kind of where his instinct lies, I think. Even like the Northman and stuff like that has, you know, and this is interesting. It kind of goes back to the earlier question about directors. I mean, he brings so much visual style. But it amazes me that he gets to do this, because I just don't see, if he was not making things that had a horrific aspect to them, would he get like the carte blanche that he gets to make films like The Lighthouse and stuff like that?
No, he wouldn't. Independent filmmaking has really moved to the horror genre, and the reason
Yeah,
why is that they're still relatively low budget to make, even something that has good production value. There's a lot of things that you're not doing. I mean, Nosferatu, I assume, is his most expensive film, but and so there's much more, and he works with the same set designer, costumer, and cinematographer all the time, by the way, because
yeah,
I checked his credits. So you know, and you have a built-in audience. That's the thing. I mean, I think Nosferatu's really pushed him out to a wider audience because with this one, because of the I think gothic nature of it. But yeah, I mean these really fabulously talented directors. Well, like my favorite horror of the year, which may be my favorite film of the year, Late Night with the Devil. The conceit of
right.
that, and it's all set in a 70s talk show, and you if someone came up with that idea just as a drama about a guy that, like, let's say metaphorically sold a soul to the devil or whatever, no one would produce it. And but
Yeah.
because it was this smaller horror film, you know I mean, if I were going to invest money into a film, I'd invest my money into a horror film because I
Oh
probably
God,
more my
yes, God,
investment.
yes. Because no,
Anything else is much
I
higher
think
risk.
you're absolutely right that if you can not break the bank making the film, then your chances of making your money back increase exponentially, and then you get to make another film. I mean, the Coen brothers have had this template for a long time. It's interesting too that there were two movies with the like the TV show backdrop, because that, I forget what it was called now, but the Anna Kendrick movie about the dating
Yeah.
game, that was kind of interesting. It felt in some ways similar to Late Night with the Devil. Um, anyway, I haven't seen much. The only thing I've seen in a theater was the Dylan movie, Complete Unknown.
Oh, how is that?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it very much. But then I'm a 66-year-old white guy. I,
Yeah.
I think
You're
I
kind of
think I
you're
might
kind
be
of the
the target.
audience.
I might be the target audience for that film. It was pretty funny because when I went to see it, it was well attended. The screening that I went to was well attended, but it was funny because I said, "Oh my God, is this going to be nothing but gray-haired old farts in this theater?" And there were probably like 6 young people, and I it was a little distracting because I was trying to get a sense of like what are they seeing and hearing,
Yeah.
because things that appear in that movie to be like culturally so hugely significant to somebody my age is utterly meaningless to anybody who doesn't know at the start, like who Dylan is, what Dylan represented, that whole period in the 60s. But I thought the film was very smart in not trying to do everything. It just took 4 years of, Dylan's first 4 years from his arrival in Greenwich Village to his, infamous electric
Yeah.
performance at the Newport Folk Festival. And that was it. That was what it focused on. And I liked it. And I'm going to make a weird confession here that I don't know if I have to revoke my film fan card or something. I had never seen Timothy Chalamet in a movie before. I had never seen any of his other movies. I haven't seen the Dune movies. I didn't see the Call Me by Your Name. But I was impressed. He did a really, really great job. Um, Sometimes I thought, like, dude, you sound a little too good. The voice is a little
Yeah,
too
that's
good
what
for
a lot of people said, and people thought it was. I think that's a good choice to not try to do an imitation. You
Yeah.
know,
I
I
mean,
think that's
he
wiser.
he he got the character though. I mean, he
Yeah,
got Dylan's mannerisms and his reticence. He
yeah,
really captured that, which is kind of what the film is all about in a way. Like you want to change the world, but then when you do change the world, it's terrifying. Uh, so anyway, it was good. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
yeah. And Ted and well, I think Ted's already watched the whole thing because he was watching with me. Squid Game 2. So I started in on Squid Game 2.
I am completely and utterly ignorant of the Squid Game phenomenon. I
It's the first one is so good. It really is. And it's quite political. I mean, it's a lot about capitalism in Korea essentially. And
well,
the desperation of people. It's great. It really is. And the second season, it's kind of trying to do two storylines, and it's like the problem is you get really caught up in one, and then you'll kind of switch back to the other. So I think the pacing is a little uneven this
okay.
comparatively. But the main guy's performance is amazing in
Well,
both.
who knows? That's not something I'm going to ever talk Kathleen into
No,
watching.
I don't think she'd enjoy it.
So we watched Bad Sisters. I
Yeah,
don't know if
so
you've
is
ever seen
Ted.
Bad
So
Sisters.
did Ted.
Yeah, I love Bad Sisters. Sharon Horgan is like a favorite of mine. And all the actresses, I love them. And I was very surprised that the second season, it's they're working uphill because you've kind of got a premise and it's like, can you really pull this off a second time? But the actors do it. I mean, it's the actors, the sisters themselves, whose performances carry the whole thing, and it was good. I enjoyed it. Okay, I have to sign off now, but Anne, it was very good to see you,
Good to see you
and
too.
we will see you soon, probably tomorrow, I hope,
Tomorrow.
at the
From when this
at the NOIR City Film
broadcast.
Festival.
Yeah.
Yeah. And And I hope some of the folks watching are coming to the festival. And if you do, say hi. For God's sake, say hi.
Yes,
We'll just
please.
we'll be hanging out.
Yeah, and just a quick reminder, if people are watching this on YouTube, if you can like and subscribe and share, because I'm trying to build us up a little more on YouTube, that would be great.
I
Much
know. I think about
appreciated.
that all the time because I we're so super low tech
Mhm.
for our modern age. We kind of just toss this off and don't put on all the bells and whistles, which I kind of enjoy,
Yeah.
but it would be nice if more people would watch just because, right? I mean, that's the point, right? We're doing this. We just did 90 minutes, right?
Yeah,
So it would be good if the more people who watch, the better. And remember, it is all about the Film Noir Foundation and our efforts to rescue and restore movies, on top of just talking about movies and having a good time. So spread the word to friends and family. And if this drives somebody to the Film Noir Foundation site and they can join the mission, all the better.
exactly, which is filmnoirfoundation.org. Okay, great. I
Okay,
think we got
well,
everything done.
we will we'll see everybody soon.
Cheers.
Bye.